covering all your favorite parts of the 50-yard fight. This is the Inside the Walls podcast with Zach Kyleman and Jim Mernier.
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Wednesday Rewind post blackout edition, Thursday edition of Inside the Walls podcast. We'll get to that in a second. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I am Jim Merlier. Alongside me, my partner in crime, 900 miles away in the lovely state of Indiana, Zach Kyleman.
And also not dealing with storms, apparently. I got a feeling that after this past week, I think that just the weather went nuts in your area, knowing that we had to talk about the miraculous and somewhat insane upset weekend that you ran into.
Something that I kind of predicted won. The other game we didn't predict at all. We mentioned it before last week, ladies and gentlemen, that we wanted some chaos. So late June, July, the battle between the two final playoff seeds where it's going to be, we're week 14 and we're finally making the decision. This week made that our hope almost reality. It's almost there. Albany still has a chance to pull themselves back up, but San Antonio made everything get a little tired. Same with Columbus. But yeah, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 49 of Inside the Walls podcast, Wednesday Rewind, Thursday edition. Week 8 review of the National Arena League. And, can't get in to start breaking down games. We got to get to where you can find us, ladies and gentlemen. Find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and on the National Arena League's website itself, nationalarenaLeague.com/videos. Also, subscribe to our YouTube page at YouTube/, well, we don't have our own URL yet, but Inside the Walls, look us on YouTube, like, subscribe. It builds morale. And if we get 100 subscriptions, which we're 16 away, one of you, our good listeners, will receive 2 tickets to an NAL game of your choosing. If not, if the NAL team is nowhere near your home, you might get a hat of your team, but you will get NAL gear in the process of our contest, year-long, regular season. If it does get into the playoffs, we will still try and figure something out. But once we get 100 subscriptions, one of you will get 2 tickets to an NAL game or a hat of your favorite team in the National Arena League. But let's go ahead.
I was going to say, if you get to 100 subscribers too, we get that custom URL. So then we can tell you where to go find us. Besides clicking a link. So you help us out. We help you. You get to go to a football game. Yourself and a friend, of course. But
help you. Help you.
Well, you get to go to one of 6 NAL regular season games. You just got to help us a little. Scratch our back, we scratch yours. Capiche? You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Help us out. It's kind of like how some of these upsets kind of help some teams out this week. Made you know what it did to help us out? It helped us get a little more of a insane and kind of an entertaining race for these 4 out of 6 playoff seeds.
Yeah,
Jesus, we're talking the shakeup. Man.
It's not really a crazy shakeup, but it's a chaotic shakeup. The 2 top teams fell to the pack a little bit. The middle, the muck that was Columbus and Jacksonville, moved up, and San Antonio is like, hey, we're now only 2 games out of a playoff position. That's huge. Yeah, the record's what it is. We know they have a losing record, but a lot of San Antonio fans out there, including one of our loyal listeners, Phil, with the Smoking Guns podcast, they're happy to see a crooked digit in the first column of their record. 1-5, still big time upset. See, I was really excited to talk about this game yesterday. Then Mother Nature's like, we're going to not just take out your internet service, we're going to take out your cell phone service in your area. Therefore, you can't do your show inside your house. You can't do it on your own cell phone and freaking outside your house. You have to go to a new location somewhere in the city that's 5G connection. And
push that thought back a little bit. Give you an extra day to compile everything.
And I was like, you know what? Hopefully it comes back on. Then we get the dreaded email via our cell phone sometime middle of the night. Like, your service would be reactivated by the end of the business day of the 15th. Well, it's past the end of the business day on the 15th, and we still don't have any internet. So thank you, Mother Nature. But anyways, I was so excited to talk about this because I predicted the upset. You did not.
I did not.
A lot of other people who covered the National Arena League predicted the upset. Everyone who's watched San Antonio over the last couple weeks have seen the improvement of the organization, has seen them get better each and every week. I just, decided to pull the trigger last week and say they were going to pull off the upset. I did not expect that San Antonio was going to control this entire game from beginning to roughly around the 12-minute mark in the fourth quarter. Albany did get a lot of scores at the end of the game. We, as football fans, will call them as garbage touchdowns. They really weren't going to determine the fact of the game. San Antonio had enough of a cushion lead. So the final score was nothing near to what the game was. I was very impressed. And one thing I've noticed early in game, I made a comment on the chat and had a good interaction with our viewers who messaged me and said they love the show. Thank you, appreciate it. Hello, YouTubers. They said, I mentioned the comments like, San Antonio is winning the line of scrimmage battle in the first quarter.
They did.
And it was people say, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, no, watch the line of scrimmage battle. They're winning on both sides of the ball. That is going to be a determining factor in this game. And sure enough, that line of scrimmage just dominated the entire game. Both sides of the ball, the guys playing both offense and defense, it was getting on to San Antonio. It seemed like it was getting on Albany. Albany seemed like they were not happy getting hit. They seemed that they were sluggish. They looked like they were going through the motion. Sam Castronova didn't look good in the first quarter. Warren Smith Jr. came in, kind of got San Antonio back got Albany back into the mix. But San Antonio answered every single time. And that was over the last couple of weeks, Zach, that's what we've seen. San Antonio and Jacksonville, San Antonio a couple weeks ago against Orlando, and a couple weeks ago over that against Carolina. You saw the progression as they were getting better, and it finally came to a pivotal point against Albany, and they continued it. The energy in that arena, biggest crowd they've had at a San Antonio football Gunslingers game in franchise history from what I've had conversations with. The production of the game, great. The announcer crew, great. We're not going to talk about penalties and bull crap. We're talking about the overall experience in Freeman Coliseum.
Okay.
There are
it was
situations.
Pretty. I mean, I'm going to put it out here because I'm not going to leave this conversation without talking. Albany lost because they didn't play well, and I'm going to put it out there. But I've had too many people talk to me that it's National Arena League has an exception for its level of just officiating, and I've had enough. I'm going to lay it down the line. Guys, expect better. I'm just saying, stop accepting mediocrity. Okay?
Are you running for president or something?
Maybe I am. I'm just saying, though. I had one too many people be a little too okay with this weekend, and I went, that's not good.
Well, there are questionable calls in that game, and there was questionable calls league-wide. I just look at San Antonio and compare it to their last home game against Columbus, night and day.
It was definitely sped up. Like it didn't seem like it was stop and start. I know my thing is too, when you have someone go, great win, too bad the officiating wasn't up to snuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, we could talk about it a little bit. There's like an ejection in the game in San Antonio. Only one player got ejected.
That was also disappointing. It was weird because I had to stop because it was the broadcast kind of blacked out for a second. I'm like, what's going on? And then it comes back like, so we just had this.
We just had the brawl.
I'm like, what? All right.
And from the San Antonio people I've talked to, and the ejection happened. Apparently, a San Antonio player swung at an Albany player and he got ejected, but the instigator, I don't know who it was in Albany, didn't get a flag or anything. If that type of situation happens, I yell about this in the NFL, in college football. Mm-hmm. If someone swings at somebody, both of them are out there because they're both in the fault. Like, these are grown men playing football. They get, emotions and the energy is there and they get frustrated. If someone swings at somebody, it's because someone else is doing something. It's just, it's not like, I'm going to tag and get hit. Oh, coach, he did something. Like, are we going to literally do the classic LeBron James flop every time someone touches me? in the NAL, like there were situations that game, and there were some in the Jacksonville game. And I'm like,
Yeah.
like, are we calling this? And it's like like a lot of NAL fans. For me, I've just come to realization, like, you're getting tired of people. So it's the NAL. It's just, to me, it's just very inconsistent on both sides of the football, on either team on any given night.
Mhm.
It's never the same crews at these going with these games. It's always a throw together crew. But it's work in progress. But did the referees, in my opinion, based on the people from Albany's point of view, from the chats, were they the reason why Albany lost to San Antonio? No. San Antonio,
No.
San Antonio outplayed you.
Not at all.
Like,
not at freaking all, dude. I mean, even if I were to take away, like, the only one that comes to mind that I'm just going to go off that is that whole Wade catch situation where it's on the side. You know, he gets the ball gets knocked out by a fan, and somehow that wasn't a catch. Nonetheless,
that was
a catch. It was.
It was clear catch.
That's why I'm not trying to stay on it too long.
Yeah.
I'm moving forward now. That's my get out of the way. Had to get off.
Yeah, but that catch wasn't a determination of the game.
Oh no, that's what I'm trying to tell you. And I'm just saying, like, that whole point on the officiating just this weekend for that. That's just something I wanted to get off my chest real quick. We're moving on now. That's all I'm putting down. Nonetheless, here's the deal. Albany starting to fall into some patterns I'm noticing here. And it's kind of disturbing for a few reasons. The offense, look, Darius Prince is your big weapon, but you can't target just Darius Prince. You have to diversify the portfolio, as I have stated. And they started out the game. They started out the game pretty smooth. They had Aaron Washa out there. He was the first TD of the game for Albany. I was like, okay, great. He's getting more involved. That's how you should do it. You know, like I said, Wade's able to get passes as well. I don't know if it's just Antwain Grant was that big and that with him gone, things have just slowed down that much. I mean, Grant's great.
Dangerfield.
Yeah, I mean, Dangerfield too. But Grant, when he was in, was excellent. He was the perfect number 2 for Darius. And I think, you know, you saw it against Columbus. You see it more so now. You know, if they can't get Prince going, if he can't be involved actively, it's almost like the offense kind of clunks along, dinks and dunks it. Every now and then you'll get a play. Sometimes then it stalls or it'll lose a drive. It's not crisp, you know?
Yeah.
And sure, we know, Albany fans know, Tommy Grady, it's hard to replace Tommy Grady. You know, Grady was able to diversify the portfolio really well. Philip Burnett obviously was on that roster last year too. They're probably feeling it after some of the stuff he did this week against them. There's like I said, that pattern a little disturbing. Defensively, they're a little overmatched. Give the Gunslingers credit and give that new ownership a bunch of credit. They've been making moves. They have been stabilizing that roster, as you and I have both talked. And I know it's funny. I was the one that picked Albany to win this week, of course, but give them credit, man. They have the pieces now to where it's like, we can take on anybody, you know, we're able to hang tough. We have folks that offensively can kill you in many faceted ways. Robert Kent's getting more comfortable behind the pocket. Yeah. And defensively, they made some stops this week that I was like, all right, way to go. Gunslingers defense stepping it up. That's a great start. And not only is that a great start just to get your first win, but in a win in front of a home crowd that's been getting advertised now for well over a month.
Yeah.
It's the biggest crowd they've had that, I mean, you can say it, and I would have to guess based on their history since they've been a team. And it was arguably, I've heard, possibly bigger than their free ticket giveaway crowd. And that's nice. That's a good start to get this franchise on the right track. I mean, yeah, Albany fans, you know, you got to feel bad for the loss, but like in terms of league status, it does feel good for that sense to have your 6th and new franchise have a good night. Kudos to the Gunslingers. I got to give them props, man. They did a great job.
I think it's we didn't want to approach it last week, but I made a comment that we had a couple people reach out to us, especially from the Northern Territory of the NAL. I said this is a big trap game for San Antonio, for Albany. Don't overlook San Antonio for Carolina rematch. I think they were looking ahead to Carolina and took the L.
You did say that, and I give you props for it for sure.
And it's because I saw how they played against Columbus. I saw how they played against Carolina, and I'm like, you're walking wounded. You got to go on a long road trip to San Antonio, and then you got to go Carolina again. Crucial top to try and go after the number 1 seed or number 2 seed. Now is you're in a position now where you got to have to win these games to even be in consideration of the number 2 seed, or how everything's getting closer, you can make the top 4. Because now, if you look at the standings, ladies and gentlemen, Orlando, Jacksonville, Columbus, and Albany are separated by 1 game.
Mm-hmm.
That's how critical that win was for San Antonio. And San Antonio's only 2 games out of the 4 spots. So technically, they're only 2.5, almost 2.5 or 3 games from second place in the NAL. So things can switch this second half of the season. And I can't wait because it's going to be chaotic. And it's kind of boring. Last year, me and you stated this last week, either on the walkthrough or last week's rewind. It's kind of boring covering a league where you have 2 dominant teams and the rest of the league is just, fluttering like, oh, we can get in. Because last year you had Albany and Columbus that were just head and shoulders better than everyone else.
Was that the excitement of it? You and I can more and more as we move forward this week debate a little bit. Maybe we'll be a little more differentiating. We aren't, picking the same. There's a lot more of I'd say kind of just a big glob now of just uncertainty and kind of question marks into each one of these contests. And I think, if you're Carolina and Albany, I mean, for their sake, that has to be a wake-up call. And I know both of them are looking at this next one. And I know Coach Manas pinned this at their last matchup as the most important game of the season. I don't know, man. This one's kind of feeling a little weirder because not only do you have to take on that, these two have to slug it out again, which if we're going to take a guess, it'll be a close contest again with whoever takes the possession lead, possibly coming out on top. But also now you got Jacksonville, Columbus. I know Orlando lost close to Jacksonville, but they still have that firepower. San Antonio is good for an upset now, any given week at this point. Like, there's a lot of things you got to worry about. Yeah. Like the mid pack is kind of getting mad. It's not even like a fringe mid pack. Now it's like a real messy mid pack of like.
What I call the mid pack. I guarantee our listeners know what I call the mid pack. The muck. Everyone's now the muck. Like it's literally Carolina is a loss away of being in the muck. Albany's already in the muck, and San Antonio is 1 win away of being in the muck. Like. I know a lot of fans out there are like, oh, you're homer against this team. You're very homer against that team. You don't like us. I want chaos. I love chaos.
Isn't that the beauty of the arena, though?
That's
chaos.
We saw 2 games that were decided early, and actually all 3 games were kind of decided, but 2 of them got really intriguing at the very end.
They did, yeah.
Because that's the arena game. You think it's all dominant, then in the last 6 minutes of the game, it's like, oh crap! All of a sudden, that 30-point lead's now a 14-point lead. Oh, can we hold on to this thing? Yeah, that's one thing I like. I want chaos. Like this week, you have the 2 top teams playing each other. Then you have the 2 mid teams playing each other. Then you have the bottom 2 teams playing each other. It could get really messy, and the muck could be really thick next week. And that's what I like. I like chaos, and especially what you said about Albany. They got to try to get 1 out of the 3. Do you really getting swept by Carolina and becoming a 500 ball club after last season? It's kind of tough for Carolina. You lose. Yes, you have the season series win against Albany, but now Albany's back in first, only by half a game. Because of the record-wise, but tiebreaker, you still own it. So if you tied with them with the even record when the season's said and done, they're tied. But Carolina gets it. I just love it. I can't wait. There's just more chaos.
Well, here's Albany. Here's the deal there. They got their remaining matchups after the Cobras. They're going to deal with the Lions, Gunslingers, and the Predators. Those are just their 3 opponents. But out of the 4 weeks, those are their 3. And 2 of the 3 clearly made adjustments to say, hey, we're done possibly being the bottom of the barrel. We've definitely heard frustrations of folks over in Columbus and how that season was starting to seem to take a turn. It's not. We'll get to that in a moment as we end the recap. Before we move on to the last like the Saturday matchups here, I got to ask you, Jim. This is my question going into next week, and this is just for the Empire's sake.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it was kind of seemed like it was just because of the moment. Castronova gets pulled for Smith.
Mm-hmm.
You know, things weren't going right. Smith comes in, and they switch back to Sam. Controversy? Question mark?
Yeah.
I mean, the veteran versus the young gun. I mean, I like Sam early on, but
I like both of them. I like Sam.
Sam started targeting Darius a little too much to what I'm seeing, you know?
Like, I forgot. Watching that game just brought me vibes of looking at a lot of the NFL back in the day, like Carson Palmer just targeting Ocho Cinco all the time. You saw you keep going to other teams like Philip Rivers and a very young freaking Blaine Gabbert in Jacksonville that just kept throwing to the same receivers. Defenses would finally find who you're throwing it to. Sam is a great guy. We had him on the show. He still hasn't shown better than last year. I think he just had a bad night. And secondly, I think Manas pulled the trigger a little too soon.
Yeah, he was getting emotional for some reasons or another, some that we mentioned earlier, but I don't want to get back into because I've had my share.
But Warren Smith is very capable of going there. And when he got in there, the offense clicked a little bit more and got more – it started to find itself. But then you pull him out and put Castronova back in for the fourth. I think that he just want either A, there is controversy, or B, Manas took him out to say, hey, sit back, watch the game, calm down, and see what Warren Smith does to put Castronova back in to settle to finish the game off. Mm-hmm. That's what it kind of did. And when Sam got back in the game in the fourth quarter, he didn't skip a beat. He was back to the same Castronova from earlier in the year. I just think there's just a long travel, coming off a loss. Manas, who, again, coaches don't like losing, but the defending champions are kind of walking wounded going in that game with a couple key pieces missing. And I think he was just trying to find a spark somewhere. But it could also be Sam was just a little too off. But we don't know the mind of a coach, but usually coaches do those pulls is to settle down the quarterback, let him say, hey, let the backup do this job and throw you back in later. Or he's just trying to find a spark in his team to get something going. And he did a little bit there in the second and third quarter. It's just that San Antonio, they couldn't stop San Antonio. San Antonio was scoring every time they were touching the ball.
Defensively, I mean, there's still those are questions you're going to ask yourself. Yeah. And I mean, I don't know if it's Magruder with his 2-game suspension being an issue. I mean, they signed Marvin Ross, so that was kind of to shore that up. You know, my understanding is they've switched some things on how they run defensively. Like I believe Darius Prince isn't really playing defense right now. They got him more moving back into a specialty role. So
he's good in that position. He's still one of the front runners to win Ironman, in my opinion. Even though that he may not be considered Ironman anymore, he did early in the season. He did play both sides of the ball. So Albany, for all the Albany fans out there, you have a squad, you have a roster, you have a team, and you have the team to make a turnaround. It's just that you're going through a bad patch in the season, just like how Jacksonville went through all last year. You're used to winning. This is uncharted territory for this organization, and it's panic and like nothing to see here, and behind you's blowing up. In actuality, it's not that. It's just very early. You're not going to win hey, Albany fans, you're not going to win a championship every single season.
So you're saying is there smoking gun moment?
Yeah,
I'm laughing at that. That's good.
But they're good. They got a pivotal test that we'll talk about on the Friday show against Carolina that it could very well determine who will be the team that hosts at least a playoff game, and actually put another team in a position where they might be a threat of not hosting a playoff game.
Man.
So
I mean, you're talking about seeding. This next matchup, I think you're on to something more and more, man. Jacksonville, one way or another, it's another.
They're finding ways to win.
They're finding ways to win. They're getting it down. And this time it's weird. They did it on defense. First half, they just said, all right, we're going to hold Orlando to 6 points. 6 points, Jim. Hold them to 6 points. Now, they almost let it go. They almost let it slip away. I mean, they sure seemed like it was going to be coming down to the wire, maybe overtime or something. But 6 points in the first half.
Yeah. One of our listeners and one of our friends, Skylar, messaged us and said if Orlando did come back and win, it would have been the biggest collapse in Jacksonville Sharks history and also the largest collapse in NAL history.
Man,
that's how close it was. But overall, Jacksonville's defense in the first half was just merciless. Cato couldn't get anything done. And Lonnie Outlaw was getting just. I love Lonnie, one of the greatest interviews we ever had on the show. But he had a hard time against Kelly, who was covering one-on-one. And Jacksonville, one thing I know about Jacksonville, even though we let Kenny Veal go, the receivers that played throughout the game are becoming very good DBs. They're playing. They're being more. They're keeping the opponent in front of them instead from having them free behind them. And I noticed that throughout the game. Second half rolled around and Cato found his groove, Beavers found his stuff, and Orlando just started going. And Jacksonville kept running into themselves, penalties, turnovers. And you got to give credit to Orlando's defense. They stepped up in the second half. One of the big things and one of the big crucial things is what's going on with Devin Wilson. He did go down with an injury, and that's going to be a big question mark. But when he went down, a certain Dangerfield stepped up. So when people say, "Oh, we lost one of the best receivers in the league," and I will retort on this, ladies and gentlemen, he is the greatest NAL player and receiver to ever play because he is number one in all the categories and the stats. But yeah, big blow for Jacksonville. Not getting a lot of information about that yet. How it looked like, it can either be, this is speculation, it's not fact. It could be hyperextended knee. It could be a pulled muscles. It could be something. He could have tore something or could have broke something. So many things. But how it looked on the field, and if every Sharks fan was a Jaguar, every Sharks fan saw that and go, "Oh, yeah, it's not looking good." So for Shark fans and for myself and for everyone in NAL, we don't wish injuries on people. And Devin Wilson is a class guy, good guy, multiple guests here on the show. And it just, hopefully he gets better. But one thing I did like, when he went down, Dangerfield stepped up. And he had three big catches when he came back, he started playing in Devin's position. That really made me like, you know what? Yeah, he's not a Devin Wilson, but he's a dang good receiver, to a point where just a couple of weeks ago we were like, Antoine Grant, Darius Prince, Dangerfield on the same field together, the receiving core. I'm like, wow, that's incredible. And for Shark fans, he's like, oh, Dangerfield. Dangerfield was the leading receiver in Jersey last year. We have him here, yes. But the question, every time everyone talks about Devin Wilson, get better, get healthy. Jacksonville has a team, and it revolves around number 7, Arvell Nelson. Since he has arrived at Jacksonville is 3-0. Before him, 1-4. So, yeah, Damian May's still on the roster. They activated Mike Faithful. I still don't know what's going on with that. Nothing about Malik. I think Malik has his hand injury is actually more severe than it's actually been reported. I don't know any stats about that. But for Jacksonville's sake, you find a way to win. The good old saying in all sports, you'd rather have an ugly win than a heartbreaking loss. And Jacksonville was teeter-tottering on that. And when the final seconds of the game, I was like, okay, Narvell, you only got 3 seconds left. You got 3 seconds left. Just run, get sacked. Take 3 seconds. What does he do? He runs, and throws it deep. It's like, what the hell are you doing? And it's Dangerfield open in the end zone. I'm like, so they don't cover the receivers? Like, what's going on?
Walk off.
I'm like, wow. But yeah, it was excuse me. It was intriguing. It was a tale of two halves. Orlando is better than what they showed in the first half. And in the second half, they showed what type of team they are. Yes, they're 3-4, but they're not that far behind Jacksonville. Jacksonville has a quarterback now. And if you have a quarterback in a quarterback type of league, you're going to be in any game you play. Now, the benefits is that Jacksonville was home. This was in Orlando, and that comeback was coming. I think the comeback would have been complete. But overall, Jacksonville's 4-4, and the playoffs started today. They're that 3 seed. Right now, they'd be traveling to Albany if it started today. And Orlando would miss out by half a game behind Columbus. But overall, it was a tale of two halves. Jacksonville had a great first half. Looked like the Jacksonville back in 2019, 2017, and 2010. Like every time they touched the ball, they were scoring touchdowns and they were dominating their opponents. And then the second half, it was the 2021 Jackson Sharks. Like couldn't score, couldn't move the ball, and was getting outright beat. And I was like, we're going to lose 3 in a row to Orlando. The epic worst loss, could have been the worst choke in franchise history against one of your rivals. They didn't happen. They held on, got a crucial win. They still got to play Orlando twice in the next 3 weeks. So when I said it's going to get chaotic in Jacksonville, it's getting like that. And again, Devin Wilson's a big question mark, but I think Jacksonville has a good core still. They have Kelly, they have Naquan Murray, they have Rob Jones, and now they have Dangerfield. They still have a plethora of weapons as a receiving core and a quarterback and a future backup quarterback that has history of winning games in the arena ball. So for Jacksonville's sake right now, am I more confident this week of them making the playoffs than I did a couple weeks ago? Yes, because of Arvell Nelson. Do I see them winning the rest of the games? I wish, but I don't. They're going to find a way to stumble, possibly next week in Columbus, because that's another conversation that we're going to get into here pretty soon. It's just right now as a Sharks fan, got the win, happy, got back to 500 or got to 500 for the first time of the season, and we're 4-4. Yeah, a couple weeks ago we were 0-3, and we're 4-4. I could take that any day of the week. It was a good win, but for Shark fans right now, it's like, yeah, we got the win, but Devin Wilson's on our mind, and I'm just trying to ease the Sharks fans. Like, let's buy out with this. We got Dangerfield, we got Rob Jones, we got Naquan Murray, we got Kelly. We're fine. Kumbaya. So yeah, that was a good win, but overall, Jacksonville is starting the show, and of course, Barber came in and made a crucial kick late into the second half. That was, I didn't think it was going to be a deuce, but it got over the bar. Mm-hmm. But still, it's a rivalry game, dude. And rivalry games, you can throw the record out of the book. You don't know what's going to happen. And Orlando proved that in the second half. They just ran out of time. And Jacksonville made crucial defensive stops in the second half that were the determining factor. But so as a Sharks fan, I love the win. As a person who loves this game, it sucks seeing Devin Wilson on that questionable list from this week and possibly future weeks, because he's such a dang good player, such a great guy in the community, and he's such a good symbol for the league and for the team itself.
That's about all you can wrap it up there. Main thing I'm going to put is kind of the wrap up right up on the on this contest from Orlando's side of it. Desmond Maxwell, I think, said it the best. Quote, "This is not the Orlando Predators that fans have been seeing." And I think first half you could easily say the same. I mean, I know Rakeem Cato is coming off an injury. We weren't even sure if he was going to be playing. His status was changed to probable just before that contest. It was questionable when we had recorded. So, I think that they just wanted to get him in. Obviously, they saw what they got in full for last week. No offense, but he needed some work. And I think that with Jacksonville being the way they are right now, and with how the standings are shaking out, you have to put your best foot forward at this moment. I think it's go time. Columbus, I think even more so now with what they've adjusted with Daniel Smith being able to deliver and be able to be getting a competent passing attack now for the likes of Townsend, Forson, Reese and company. You want to be able to take wins when you can. And this is a crucial series, I think, for the playoffs. 3 matchups against the Sharks, in the coming weeks. 2 of the next 3 are going to be against Jacksonville. So you want to get these wins when you can and win the season series. Didn't put their best foot forward first half. Got to give the Sharks plenty of credit again defensively. Multiple 4-and-outs, a fumble for 6 right on the gate. I mean, that's never going to go your way. You don't want to give up a possession and a touchdown in one quick swoop in arena, especially. 4-and-outs alone are just deadlier too. And with how Arvell has been playing, it just compounds the issues. Now, one thing Arvell Nelson was known for when I watched him in the AFL, and one thing I'll say that he has had some moments in the NAL, you can get some interceptions off him per game. That is the one thing. If you're going to play Jacksonville, you got to be able to keep up, and you got to wait for a mistake. Generally, at least one I've noticed you'll get every game. It's just you have to be able to, use it to your advantage, and you have to keep the gas on. You have to keep your foot on the pedal. Otherwise, Jacksonville's going to be able to hang tough with you all night. That's how it goes. Orlando might want to take that back with them because they had chances. Simple as that. They have a roster that can keep up. And I get your point, especially with Lonnie Outlaw and them. We've talked about this. Their secondary has seemed like it has been trying to learn on the fly in a way as it's gone through the year. Felt like this was another learning moment for them. Second half, they tightened up really well. Again, got some questionable throws that were picks for Arvell. Did decent job. One thing the Sharks did really well that kind of, I think, also killed the Predators from getting a comeback, like you talked, they didn't allow any deep passes. It was dink and dunk. You had to grind down the field every one of those drives in the second half. And they did it, but that clock, as we know, it keeps a running. And you got to be able to score quick. I mean, you can get to the 1 minute warning, but of course, if Jacksonville gets the ball and they do what they did, where they get a half yard and the clock keeps going, they don't get no negative yardage or incompletions or anything like that, then that's all she wrote. I mean, they just ran out of time. 26 points down. It's hard to come back from in any league. Orlando's going to be thinking about this, but they'll have time. Gunslingers, tough matchup. Again, they've been close meetings each one of these times against San Antonio, so it should be a fun game when we talk about it later on. I mean, don't, like you're talking though, this is their week. Don't overthink it. You don't want to. Trap game is maybe it's even a trap game anymore if they're getting close games or playing you tight. I don't know. Like, I'm just saying, if you're overthinking going to Jacksonville next week, going back to Shark Tank, it's like trap game inbound. Watch out.
I pulled out the trap game 1 week, and then all of a sudden it's like, we're going to do this as continuously. Okay, I see how we do. All right.
I know. And then you got this week as we wrap up. I mean, Jacksonville's going to play Columbus, and as we now both know, we got talked by folks that are closer to the team as we're going into this week. It's like, hey, new signings we got. They look good. We might surprise some people. We talked about Tommy Neely, and
it wasn't him.
It wasn't him. And part of it is I just didn't do due diligence and click on Daniel Smith's name that says quarterback under the listing when you go on the transactions. It's one of those things. Just got to do a little more deep dive and check.
They're both from Miles College too. So
nonetheless, Daniel Smith, he had a day. If this was the NFL and it was social media team, he had a day. Man was able to find everything he wanted. Townsend, another guy, had a field day. Dude was I think was really the player of the game for this regard. Kenny Starks comes back, has a hell of a defensive effort. I mean, it was like the Lions were just like, this team was like, okay, we got QB. We are fed up with this garbage we've been putting out on the turf lately. It's time to go and shake up a few things. That's exactly what they did. They had a packed crowd in there, and they just came to play. Like, Carolina was not present. Whatever they brought with them from Greensboro did not get off the bus, because that is not the same Cobras team I have been watching for 7 weeks prior. It was atrocious. I'm not even going to hold back. And I mean, Coach Rez has to have known that. You could tell Jonathan Bain all night, just frustrated beyond belief, whether it was just, get shoestring sacks, miscues. Defensively, they just were getting outmaneuvered on the turf. It was just a complete mess. Carolina was discombobulated in all phases and had no right to be in this game whatsoever. It just was not their night.
You brought up the, wherever they left, they brought when they came to Columbus, they forgot something in Greensboro. Someone mentioned that in the chat on the game. It goes, I think they went to a rest area and forgot the actual team, the rest area, and showed up to the club. And I'm like, that's harsh. And I realized who said it. I'm like, oh, that's a Carolina fan that said that.
Got a few U.S. Army Rangers in town. We'll throw them on the field. Get the guys that went off from the Roof Raptors.
Yeah.
Some uniforms, and out you go.
I was just surprised how Carolina was manhandled. Like, Columbus just owned this game from the get.
They were physical.
There was no comeback for Carolina. This game was one-sided from the beginning to the end. And it's something that we didn't see from Carolina this year. Yeah, we saw the close loss to Jacksonville, but they've always been the team that was clearly the better opponent, clearly out-physical their opponents besides Jacksonville. That was pretty even. This game, they looked like they just were going through the motions. And maybe because they just came off of a game in Albany that was bigger, and they needed it. And then this was a letdown game against Columbus to a quarterback situation that it was a question mark with Darren Daniel and now with Smith. I think Carolina, you don't want to say it, but I think they were ill prepared in this game. They thought, hey, we're Carolina, we're 6-1, we're the best team in the league. We just came off being Albany, who we think is the best team in the league. They went down to Columbus. Columbus had a great showing in the stands this week. And I don't know what Gibson did. I don't know what this team did. But that Columbus team was completely different than that team that played in Jacksonville a couple weeks ago, that played in Orlando just the prior week. The different Columbus Lions team. That team that I saw this past week is the Columbus Lion team that we have seen every single season under Jason Gibson here in the National League. They're 4-3-3, 500, back in the mix. They're technically tied with Jacksonville. Jacksonville has a tiebreaker because of point differential. They're 1-1, crucial game this week. That would be determination of that tiebreaker. And I don't know. The receivers were catching. Fordson was doing. Townsend was doing Townsend things. They did a couple of special team kick returns. It was just a game that I was like, this is the Columbus team that we expected from week one. Now, I know Columbus fans, and I know some of our colleagues that we were associated with. I kind of joked. Me and you jokes like I think Bain was blinded going one direction because of a reflection in this end zone. But the one thing is unique in this game is that I like seeing Columbus like this. This is Columbus football. Aggressive defense. They're going to pretty much out-physical you on the line of scrimmage, which they did, and their offense scored with consistency. I had to rub my eyes. Is that Mason back there? What's going on? The team was consistent. Smith came in and looked like he's been with the Columbus Lions for 10 years. That offense looked like it was humming, and they beat the number one team in the league, Carolina, and just didn't beat them. They took them behind the woodshed and welcome to Carolina, welcome to Columbus. This is our house, and they did it.
Well, Smith, the main thing that he brought to this is he brought at least a little more, I would say, mobility. A little more. He was a little more quick on the draw. Passes were getting out there. If it was a quick swing, that thing was getting out there. There was no delay. It was pretty much there's no, how do I put it? Not inconsistency. There was no stuttering. He knew what he wanted to do. It was a very much a focused mental game plan.
Yeah.
On how they wanted to execute this against the Columbus Lions. And they had receivers that were getting open and making plays when needed.
You got
it. Exactly. Well, you have a talented Iron Man roster, as we have talked about. With any team, though, any football team, especially in arena, you got to have a QB that has to deliver with those narrow throwing angles and, of course, over the top. He was able to do it, and has to be a little athletic too if you need to. I mean, come on, that's spinning throw on the right side, kind of going off the sideline. We thought the thing was dead on arrival. He was going to get hit out of bounds. I mean, it's a touchdown. That was one of the highlights of the weekend in the league itself. I was impressed. That's a great sign. And again, adds more parity. I like comfort parity. I like crazy. This makes me think, oh boy, every week now. Like as long as Smith keeps playing at this level, as long as teams aren't finding ways to catch on, maybe see any tendencies he's given off. Maybe his first game, just game plan wasn't fully there. We'll find out. But if this is what we're going to see the rest of the way. Oh, buckle up, Buckaroos. Things are going to get wild.
Welcome to the chaos. Welcome to the chaos. That's what I wanted, man. I wanted total chaos in late June and July. I didn't want this to be a top-heavy league. Still can be a top-heavy league. It might not be the team that we think they are. There could be two teams that take 1 and 2 that at one point weren't the 1 and 2 team. But there's one thing I want to add about Smith, like how they brought Darren Daniel in. Darren Daniel wasn't an active player at that time. He was still in Columbus. He was a coach. I think he's a coach or a car salesman. But he was still being athletic, but he wasn't active. Smith play for another league this season, so he just came right in. So he was still in midseason form. So I think that's what benefit Columbus as well. And now Smith just adds into the chaos that I want in late June and in July, which I think we're going to get. And I just, as a fan of this game, it's one thing about arena football. It's not fun when there's separation. It's fun when everything's chaotic. And we're getting that. And week 8 delivered.
Kind of accordioned. Went out and it came right back in.
Yeah.
How far back into it go before we get to the stroke again? That's all. That's what I'm waiting on. What comes back out to the other side of that compression. I hope everyone gets what I'm talking about. That's all I'm going to leave it at.
Accordion. Yeah. The older population will know what you're talking about, by the way. Musicians will. Yeah. So to the kids out there, you can put away your flip phones and all. So that shows you my age. But overall, week 8 delivered, gave us chaos. I was right on one predict. We were both wrong with Columbus. I'm happy to be wrong about Columbus. It just makes this week coming up on final walkthrough more intriguing because these 3 games are just not pivotal. They're crucial. It's either going to make the pack thicker or we're going to probably see a movement of 2 teams back at the top tier of the thing. Still, chaos. San Antonio. The reason why I picked y'all is because I had a agreement / invisible handshake with the fan base that I don't think they knew there was a handshake. You still owe me some breakfast tacos. DM me for my email. But no, that's all good. But San Antonio, congratulations on your first win in the National Arena League. Congratulations for the good showing in Freeman Coliseum. Really appreciate it. John Wayne Group, guys are awesome. That was a great show for their first official home game as an ownership group, and I can't wait to the next home game. Got crucial matchups. Columbus back on the winning edge. Jacksonville survives in Duval in a crucial game in Columbus. And now we got Chapter 3 between the Albany Empire and the Carolina Cobras this week. Will there be a sweep, or does Albany at least get one from the Cobras? I'm Jim Renier. That's Zach Cowling. Before we leave, remember one thing.
Always look for a competitive schedule. And don't be a jack out of the box. Hey, it could be the decision between a win or a loss. Keep that in mind.
Technically, yeah, it can. That's 5-year penalty. But anyways, find us on socials at InWallsPod, and we'll catch you guys tomorrow on the final walkthrough.